Kia ora everyone, I'm Arung from University of Otago. So I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to present my paper with my co-author, Luna, which is my PhD fellow. So this paper is done by a PhD students, titled Carbon Emission Disclosure and Earnings Management, Ethical Behavior or Opportunism Motivation. So this study aims to investigate the effect of carbon emission disclosure on earnings management, specifically in Indonesia context. So as we know, one of the significant issues in the past decade is how to mitigate climate change by reducing carbon emissions. So the Kyoto Protocol in 1998 and Paris Agreement in 2015 show how regulators around the world have committed to take action in tackling carbon emissions. Despite of these efforts, the role of businesses has been particularly highlighted. The Carbon Disclosure Project 2017 showed that 100 companies around the world have been accountable for 71% of global carbon emissions. Additionally, the report from Influence Map shows that 57 companies produced 80% of global carbon emissions during 2016 to 2022. Consequently, firms are under increasing pressure from stakeholders to communicate their carbon emission-related informations. So in the context of Indonesia, Indonesia ranked as the sixth largest carbon emitter in the world. In addition, Indonesia has made a strong commitment to achieving net zero emissions by 2060. Additionally, the Indonesia Financial Services Authority has mandated financial services institutions, issuers, and publicly listed company submit an annual sustainability report by 13th of April of the following year since 2019. Despite of these facts, carbon emission disclosure practice remain voluntary in Indonesia. So we are motivated to explore the relationship between carbon emission disclosure and earnings management for some reasons. First, a very few studies have investigated this relationship. So prior studies have analyzed the impact of CSR or environmental disclosure on earnings management. However, CSR and environmental disclosure are broad and multidimensional concepts without clear boundaries. And the second one is most of the study focused on the carbon emission performance and neglect disclosure. In addition, however, while some previous study, they have included global sample on carbon emission studies, but there is still a lack of evidence of carbon emission disclosure and earnings management relationship in the context of emerging countries such as Indonesia. Also, the empirical evidence provides mixed evidence, so it might be attributed to differences in national culture and regulatory frameworks. And furthermore, most studies use CDP data, while in Indonesia, most of firms, they follow GRI standards in preparation their sustainability report, including carbon emission disclosure, carbon emission related information disclosure. So our research question is whether carbon emission disclosure affect earnings management in Indonesia firms or not. So here, as you can see, the literature on voluntary disclosure presents both ethical and opportunistic perspective to explain why firms voluntarily disclose environmental information, including carbon emissions. So agency and stakeholder theories offer particularly conflicting viewpoints. Agency theory posits that management acts opportunistically. So management might use carbon emission disclosure to obscure their opportunistic behavior, such as earnings management. In contrast to agency theory, stakeholder theory asserts that top management is intrinsically motivated to fulfill the interests of all stakeholders. So this viewpoint maintains that management and business have a societal responsibility balancing between financial and non-financial goals according to the triple bottom line. So based on these two competing perspectives from different theory, we hypothesize there is a negative association between earnings management and carbon emission disclosure as supported by the ethical perspectives, or there is a positive association between earnings management and carbon emission disclosure as supported by the opportunistic view. So to test this hypothesis, we employ all Indonesia firms data from 2016 to 2021 and run this following model. So the dependent variable is earnings management. It's measured by the absolute discretionary accrual calculated using Jones 1991 model. And our main independent variable is a dummy variable that takes a value of 1 if the firms disclose carbon emission related information in their sustainability report following GRI standards and 0 otherwise. We also include some control variables such as board size, board gender diversity, firm size, leverage, current, and operating margin ratio. So next, let's moving on to the result section. So this table presents the descriptive statistic for all variable for the full sample. So there are in total 2006 firm year observation. As you can see, the mean value of earnings management is 0.08. Regarding the carbon emission disclosure variable, 23% of our sample voluntarily disclose carbon emission related information in their sustainability report following GRI standards. Next table shows the descriptive statistic for the subsamples, dividing those from disclosed and non-disclosed carbon emission related information in their sustainability reports. So as you can see here, the firms disclosing carbon emission information in their sustainability report less earnings management compared to those firms not disclose carbon emission related information in their sustainability report. So this result provides initial support for the ethical hypothesis. Next, this graph shows the total number of companies disclose carbon emission related information in the sustainability reports over our sample period. So as you can see, we know the number of firms disclosing carbon emission related information is gradually increases during our sample period, especially after the mandatory of sustainability reporting in 2019 and 2020. Next, this table reports the person's correlation coefficient for the sample. None of the correlation exceeds the threshold 0.8, suggesting that our study is not likely to have any multicollinearity concerns. Moving on to the main results. So as you can see, the coefficient of carbon emission disclosure variable is negative and statistically significant at a 5% level. So this result implies that firms that voluntarily disclose carbon emission related information in their sustainability report tend to do less earnings management. So this finding is consistent with the ethical perspective, implying that ethical firms demonstrate their accountability in both enhanced financial reporting quality and greater carbon emission transparency. As a robustness check, we also use an alternative dependent variable, which is the absolute value of discretionary accrual using Kotari et al. 2005 model. And as you can see, the coefficient of carbon emission disclosure variable is negative and statistically significant at a 5% level. So it's confirming our baseline finding and furthermore support the ethical hypothesis. We admit that potential indigeneity issues plague the carbon emission disclosure choice, as there is a regulatory shift in terms of sustainability reporting in Indonesia. Therefore, to address this, we run Heckman two-stage selection model and then instrumental variable regression. So we use a mandatory as an instrumental variable. So mandatory here is a dummy variable that takes a value of 1 for the period during the mandatory of sustainability reporting and 0 otherwise. And as you can see, again, the results show that the coefficient of carbon emission disclosure variable is negative and significant, confirming for our baseline findings. We also run a propensity score matching. So using matching sample, here the result is robust. So we conclude that disclosing carbon emission related information on a sustainability report is significantly negatively associated with earnings management. And we can say that being accountable to both investor and stakeholder is a vital part of building trust and the reputation for the firm. So we believe this study offers an alternative ethical explanation for reduced earnings management practices and enhanced carbon emission disclosure that is in contrast to the dominant opportunistic view in the current literature. So that is everything from me. All comments will be. Thank you.